Now, we will hear from Dr. Danilo Bevk, pollinator researcher at the Slovenian National Institute of Biology, Department of Organism and Ecosystem Research. He's a scientist whose research focuses on pollinator diversity, ecology, monitoring and conservation, and the use of pollinators in agriculture. So now, without further ado, welcome to the stage, Mr. Danilo Bevk.
Thank you very much for this opportunity that I can present you the importance and diversity of pollinators. Pollinators provide us with one of key ecosystem services, a service that we are often not even aware of, but it is crucial for our survival, for our agriculture, for food security, for biodiversity. And we are talking here about pollination. There are estimations how much pollination is worth for our agriculture. At the European level, about 21 billion euro, and worldwide more than 100 billion. So pollinators are very important. However, the majority of people, when we talk about pollination and pollinators, only have in mind honeybee. Honeybee is important, but not the only one, because we also have wild pollinators, and at least half of pollination in agriculture is done by wild pollinators, not because honeybees the number of honeybees is not big enough, but because honeybees cannot carry out pollination in every weather conditions. That is why it is very important to preserve variety of pollinators. So they carry out important tasks. They ensure food security as well as biodiversity. What is pollinator diversity? Who are our pollinators? We have honeybees and then many wild pollinators. First of all, there are wild bees, which also include bumblebees and solitary bees. In Slovenia, we have more than 500 types of wild bees, and worldwide more than 20,000 kinds. Then we also have hoverflies, carpenter bees, some beetles, and in other parts of the world also some bats, birds, and so on, even reptiles. So all these groups of pollinators are very important. They are important, but also endangered. We often hear about endangerment of honey bee in particular. In many European countries, Slovenia included, the number of honeybees is still growing, not because the conditions are more favorable, but because beekeeping is popular. And if we have more beekeepers, this means more bees, of course. However, the sources have been becoming more and more scarce, and this affects all the pollinators, the wild pollinators. As regards bumblebees, 1/4 of them is faced with extinction in Europe. And this means that in some parts, so the security of pollination has already been endangered. The situation is serious. What are the reasons for the endangerment of pollinators? There are several, but in general, we can say that these are changes caused by human. We changed our environment so that it is not pollinator friendly anymore. If we look at our meadows, there aren't so many flowers anymore. Some of them do not have flowers at all, and we call them green deserts. The same goes for green areas in many parts of our cities. Then there are pesticides, illnesses, and of course climate changes that also have negative effect on blooming. This means less food for pollinators, and they also affect their life cycles. How can we help them? The most important is to preserve the environment, and flourishing meadows are the most important environment. They also nest there. These meadows can be preserved anywhere, not just in agricultural land, but also in cities. In agricultural areas, they are important because they are a source of food for pollinators who pollinate agricultural plants. And at the same time, the city environment is important for them because in many cases they are more friendly to the pollinators as the farming land where extensive farming is carried out. And it is also important that we reduce the use of pesticides. In connection with this, we need to train farmers and raise their awareness. And in such a way, we will preserve environment in such a way that it will provide safe environment for pollinators. To conclude with, I would like to point out the importance of knowledge and monitorings. Monitoring itself does not provide direct help to pollinators. If we count them, we do not help them. However, monitoring is still very important because by monitoring pollinators, we know what is going on in our environment. We are aware of the situation, and based on that, we can prepare adequate measures and also monitor the effectiveness of those measures. If we do not have the right data, we might end up with measures that are not effective, and we might not even notice that. They might even be counterproductive. That is why it is important that we know the situation very well and that we also follow the findings of experts in this area if we want to protect pollinators. Without pollinator diversity, there is no food security. This is the bottom line that I would like to point out again. Thank you for your attention.